Ladies and gentlemen, this particular story comes out of Denton, Texas, from what I understand. It says Denton, so Denton County Jail has to do with this. I think this is Denton, Texas. The individual that you see on my screen, wow. Wowee. Wow. Sheesh. Boy, I know life is hard out here for a pimp, especially when you're trying to get the money for the rent. Sheesh. Lord, please forgive me for what I'm about to say about this story. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to say some things that are not going to sit well with your sensibilities. I'm going to say some things that are probably going to piss you off. So if you cannot handle that, then please believe you might need to take that as your disclaimer and exit my video, because I have to talk about what I see on my screen. What do I see on my screen? It's a little too much stimuli for me to really grasp the concept of what I'm looking at. But that is, I guess, apparently a grandmother. Let me see if I can get her skull, I mean her face back on my screen. I mean her mustache. Sorry. Okay. A grandmother in Texas may spend the rest of her life behind bars. Let me start over. I'm sorry. A mustache in Texas. A grandmother in Texas may spend the rest of her life behind bars after authorities say that she confessed to beating her 3-year-old grandson so severely that he was declared dead after nearly a week in the hospital. The individual that you see on my screen, her name is Angela J. Downing, 57 years rough. 57 years old. 57. Right on there, pimp. 57, huh? I would have took 87, but 57, I'll take your word for it. But Angela Downing is 57 years old, according to this report from lawandcrime.com. Thank you for the article. Was taken into custody this week and charged with 1 count of murder, police announced on Monday. According to a press release from the Denton Police Department, Downing, on the morning of January 18th, so this was about, 8 days ago, brought her grandchild to Texas Health Fort Worth Hospital with numerous severe injuries. When questioned about how her grandson sustained these injuries, Downing allegedly told the medical staff that the boy had accidentally fallen down a flight of stairs, per the press release. Does that not sound like a lot of domestic violence stories when a husband and a wife used to get into it back in the day, and they say, oh yeah, I accidentally fell down some stairs, or I accidentally walked into the corner of a cabinet. That's how I got my black eye. You blamed it on the kid, right? Sir? Ma'am, right? You blame it on the kid? However, doctors who were not born yesterday, they might have not been born last night, right? Might have been born at night, but not last night. Doctors at the hospital noted the suspicious nature of the boy's injuries and contacted Child Protective Services, CPS, who turned contacted the Denton Police Department. So thank you for having some common sense, seeing something and saying something. The child was admitted to the Pediatric Intensive Care Unit at Cook Children's Medical Center. Investigators interviewed Downing, the grand human, I guess, interviewed her, or him, and the doctors who treated the child. Downing allegedly conceded that her initial story claiming that her grandson fell down the stairs was not true. During an interview with detectives, Downing, who was the child's legal guardian, So it makes you wonder, where was the biological mother? Where was the biological father? I guess nowhere to be found. Downing, who was the child's legal guardian, admitted to forcefully throwing the child onto the bathroom floor and against a wall, according to the press release. The child sustained a skull fracture and suffered a brain bleed and brain swelling as a result. After spending approximately 4 days fighting for his life in PICU, Downing's grandson was pronounced dead January 22nd, which was 4 days ago from today at approximately 7:52 a.m. Tarrant County Medical Examiner's Office identified the victim as Nishan Ralph Downing Jr. Per online records, cause and manner of death will be determined pending an autopsy, so we will get an official word on that. Now, let me see if I can actually find a picture. I don't think I can, but that's at least the name. So if anybody is able to find that picture, feel free to email it to me. Email address is right here, theafcmatters@gmail.com. Nishan, Nishan, Neshon, Randolph, so I said that wrong, Randolph Downing Jr. So if you guys are able to find that, then let me know. Downing was booked into the Denton County Jail on Tuesday morning, and online records show that she is being held on a surety bond, $250,000, in the same state that we say that we have super aggravated child abuse laws. A $250,000 bond for this type of abuse and lying. Like lying should automatically get you $1 million bond. Add some more on top of that for lying. For changing your story, that's lying. That's perjury. That should be an offense where you can add more to the bail. But nonetheless, they say that this is a tragic reminder of how devastating child abuse can be and how the relationship between the suspect and victim can vary, Denton police said. If you suspect or know a child who is being abused, please call the Denton Police Department at 940-349-8181 or the Children's Advocacy Center for North Texas, 972-317-2818. Please always call 911 as an emergency. So that's a fail-safe right there. You can call that number if you don't know the other numbers. Earlier this month, a grandmother in Alabama was indicted by a grand jury for capital murder in the death of her 6-month-old grandchild after she allegedly told a story that didn't stand up to scrutiny. The woman reportedly told investigators that she had been dancing around with the infant when he sustained the fatal injuries, but a medical examiner said that the child's death was indicative of abuse and would be deemed a homicide, according to multiple reports. Grandmother's gone wild. Dude, like you just wouldn't expect that from a grandparent. You think that'd be the one person? So, like most of y'all have grandparents or you've had grandparents. Would you ever suspect your grandparent of being abusive? I wouldn't on my mom or dad's side. That's crazy. Federal law allows citizens to reproduce, distribute, or exhibit portions of copyrighted motion pictures, videotapes, or video discs under certain circumstances without the authorization of the copyright holder. This is called fair use. It is allowed for purposes of criticism, news reporting, teaching, and parody, which doesn't infringe of copyright under 17 U.S.C. 107. Also, don't forget a simple way to help us to bring more views to this video and more attention to this story. Please make sure you guys hit that thumb up. We want to have one thumb up for everybody that's watching this story right now, okay? So let's share in the memory of Nishan Randolph Downing Jr. Here are the news videos. Let's get it.
Now to a tragic story out of Denton where a woman is accused of killing her own grandson.
He was only 3 years old, and the details are very hard to hear. Police say the grandmother threw the boy down on the bathroom floor so hard the injuries eventually left him brain dead. It happened in an apartment on Bolivar Street near West Sherman Drive, and tonight neighbors there in disbelief, wondering how this could happen. Here's Malini Basu.
Sad for me. I love that little boy so much.
Zeddy Cruz is heartbroken after she heard about what happened to her 3-year-old neighbor, who police say was killed by his grandmother.
I used to watch them while she go grocery shopping. They used to play with my cat, Cloud, chase him around.
Denton police charged Angela Downing with murder. The 57-year-old was caring for her 2 grandchildren, a 3-year-old boy and a 4-year-old girl. And then last week,
a child that showed up at a local hospital with severe injuries. Grandmother, who is our child's legal guardian, advised the child had accidentally fallen down a flight of stairs, and that's what led to the trip to the hospital.
Lieutenant Buchanan says Grandma later admitted to detectives that she killed her grandson.
Ms. Downing stated that she forcefully threw the child on the bathroom floor and up against a wall.
The 3-year-old suffered a skull fracture, and doctors declared him brain dead. Cruz saw the boy last week.
Oh, he's precious. He had a nice smile on his face, and he played with the cat and watched cartoons.
Cruz will be saying a prayer for him.
I would say to the little boy to enjoy himself in heaven with the Lord Jesus Christ.
CPS tells us the 4-year-old sister is now in their care. We also asked Denton police if they had any prior encounters with the grandmother. They tell us in February of last year, they did a welfare check where the grandmother was allegedly out grocery shopping and the kids were left in the car. Right now, Downing is being held on a $250,000 bond. We're in Denton. I'm Melanie Basu.
Tonight, disturbing story out of Denton. A young boy's grandmother now charged with his murder. Good evening. I'm Doug Dunbar. Good to have you for CBS 11 News at 6. Denton police say that the boy survived 5 days in the hospital before dying from severe injuries to his head. Andrea Lucia reporting that the grandmother's initial explanation simply didn't add up for police.
Oh, I love that little boy so much.
Zeddy Cruz was heartbroken to learn the 3-year-old little boy who lived upstairs had died.
Oh, he's precious. He had a nice smile on his face, and he played with the cat and watched cartoons.
Denton police say they were alerted by CPS after his grandmother, Angela Downing, showed up with him at a local hospital. She claimed at first, they say, he'd accidentally fallen down a flight of stairs.
Throughout the investigation, we determined that those injuries were not consistent to that part.
Eventually, police say Downing confessed she'd thrown him so forcefully against a bathroom floor and a wall, he'd fractured his skull and suffered a brain injury.
We did have a previous call related to them where children were left in a vehicle while grandma had gone inside for the grocery store for a short time.
Cruz said she would watch the boy and his sister while Downing shopped for groceries.
One day he pooped on himself, and she got really upset. She said she was old school and she was gonna herself. And
while Downing shopped for groceries.
One day he pooped on himself, and she got really upset. She said she was old school and she was gonna deal with that.
For groceries.
One day he pooped on himself, and she got really upset. She said she was old school and she was gonna deal with that.
Old school, and she's gonna deal with that. You mean treat him like a slave and beat him like he's property and not a human being at 3 years old? Look, I can't blame this woman that y'all see on my screen, but if I were to hear something like that, if it were me, thank you. I was thinking the same thing. You could have saved that boy's life. I would have called CPS right then and there. But I think that too many of us are scared of these caretakers, particularly the people who share my skin color. How about I just say it like that? We fear people who share my skin color, but I think that we need to get over our fear and stand up for the children. That child needed an advocate, and I know that this woman, that child would have probably lived a better life if she were the caretaker rather than his own grandmother. I don't blame her, but I use these moments as a teaching moment to just say that if you were in her shoes like other neighbors have been, is to make that phone call. I'd rather you be wrong and report it rather than I'd rather you be wrong and report it rather than not report it and we end up with a dead child, because the abuse is an ongoing thing. Talking to children in a demonstrative way is not productive to raising children. You don't spank children, you don't hit children. And I will say this again, because this has been my message pretty much forever. I'd say probably for the better of 20 years since I've been a counselor, a youth camp counselor. But definitely the 4 years that I've been on YouTube, this has definitely been my message. You should not put your hands, feet, or other objects on children. If you have to physically discipline your children, then you are not a suitable parent. You should not have children if you have to physically discipline your children. And I'm not going to accept it as an answer, well, not all children are the same. Then you shouldn't be a parent if you have to abuse children, if you have to hit children, punch children, spank children, be physical with them. Why don't you do that to bigger kids, 15, 16, 17, 18? Because they might whoop your ass. They might fight back. You can't physically do it against their will if they don't want you to. That's why. So why do we spank children then? Oh, that's right. Because they're too small to do a freaking thing about it. Sounds like a bully, don't it? Remember in slavery when they used to tie you to a tree? Like y'all love to keep making all these slavery movies and be reminded that that's how we used to be treated. Oh, it was such a bad thing. But if it was, then why do we do it on a smaller scale to our children, our smallest ones that can't speak for themselves, can't defend themselves, can't stop you if they wanted to? Sounds like a bully mentality to me, and it sounds like the mentality of a person who is not suitable to be a parent, because apparently you don't have the strong mental capacity to reason and teach a 3-year-old. Why does a 3-year-old need to be beat? Sounds like you're not ready to be a parent. I'm sorry, man. If you don't have the mental capacity to reason with a baby, then like I said, you shouldn't have kids in your custody. Let's keep going.
Police say Downing was the children's legal guardian, but according to Cruz, she talked of being in a custody battle with her son.
Well, she had said that he wanted custody of the children because he was trying to get on housing or food stamps and such. Well, she was doing the same thing.
Cruz said when she saw, according to Cruz, she talked of being in a custody battle with her son.
Well, she had said that he wanted custody of the children because he was trying to get on housing or food stamps and such. Well, she was doing the same thing.
Battle with her son.
Well, she had said that he wanted custody of the children because he was trying to get on housing or food stamps.
According to Cruz, she talked of being in a custody battle with her son.
Well,
according to Cruz, she talked of being in a custody battle with her son. According to Cruz, she talked of being in a custody battle with her son.
Well, she had said that he wanted custody of the children because he was trying to get on housing or food stamps and such.
Thank you, Ami. Can we get a hashtag babies for benefits? Thank you, Joan. Thank you to everybody who caught it while I kept playing that and repeating it. She was in a heated custody battle with her own son because they were trying to take advantage of the benefits that child would provide to both of these lazy, non-productive assholes. They were getting benefits from the government off of the backs of these children, off of this baby. So I could get on Section 8 housing, food stamps, and what kind of shit is that? That's why you wanted the kid, not because you wanted to love the kid, raise the kid, see them grow up and become something great, send them off to college so they can grow up and have their own business or work for this great company and turn around so they can grow up and have a family and then turn around and give you a lineage so you could be a great grandparent or a grandparent. For none of those reasons, right? I want y'all to notice that he didn't want custody, nor did she want custody for this kid for any of those reasons that I just stated. The reason why they wanted custody of that kid, because the kid was going to be incentivized. Hashtag babies for benefits, which is an AFC hashtag. Thank you.
Said that he wanted custody of the children because he was trying to get on housing and food stamps and such. Well, she was doing the same thing.
Cruz said when she saw Downing just yesterday, she seemed to be in a good mood.
She didn't cry or anything. She was happy.
Denton police arrested Downing yesterday and charged her with murder. CPS confirms her 4-year-old granddaughter is now in foster care. In Denton, Andrea Lucia, CBS 11 News.
Man, oh man. But these stories will continue to be cautionary tales when I try to remind people how we should bring children into this world and why we should be having children, why we should be parents. And this is a clear indication that us continuing to have children outside of having these children to be raised under one household in a nuclear family, biological mother, biological father, kids under one roof, be married, the social construct that used to work for us back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. We've moved completely away from that, and we continue to keep creating broken homes until somebody puts their foot down and says that it's going to stop here. It's going to stop with my generation. No more. Same way I'm trying to raise my daughter, the same way I'm trying to educate other parents, to educate their kids, and then to educate their peers. To hopefully that we can have so many of these examples or show so many of these examples that we can slow this trend of just using kids, abusing kids, and killing kids. It's got to stop. But I think that they need to make an example out of this woman while she has the middle of her skull split like the Red Sea, like Moses then walked in the middle of her head. It looked like somebody took a freaking plow machine to the middle of her head. My goodness. That is a rough looking creature, boy. I guess 87 is the new 57 in the face. That woman looked like, I don't know, like they stuck her in a toaster. They didn't even have nerve to shave off her mustache before they took her to jail. But nonetheless, I hope that she gets life in prison. So sorry that this baby lost his life again. We'll give that child's name. I want to put some respect on that child's name. 3-year-old Nishan Randolph Downing Jr., young soul, R.I.P. Life in prison for that individual, Angela Downing. She deserves it. Thank y'all for listening to the story. Make sure you share it. Spread awareness. Make sure you advocate for the children. You see something, please say something. Thank you.